Hello, beautiful souls. Today's episode is so good. And before we jump in, I have some exciting news to share. If you've ever wondered where you're blocking money, this is for you. I've created a free quiz to diagnose your money wounds so you can heal them and unblock yourself to receive more money. Just go to moneywoundsquiz.com and answer 6 quick questions to get your insanely accurate and potent result. And if you're loving my vibe and want to work one-on-one to call in more feminine energy wealth, I would love to hear from you. You can shoot me a DM on social media or go to emilywilcox.com to learn more. Welcome to the show. I am so excited that you're here listening because we have an incredible guest today. We have Lisy Butterfly, who is a transformational coach specializing in energetic alchemy, embodied arts, and feminine leadership, brand and business consulting. Her expertise is to unleash full liberation in women seeking to soar into their unique soul brilliance, creative genius, and natural magnetism. Lisy's background is in the performing arts, and that background inspired her to develop unique embodiment signature systems that help women rise above trauma, emotional turmoil, and toxic dynamics within their career and personal life. She's mentored and accompanied hundreds of students and clients to launch their heart-centered businesses, achieve consistent 5 to 10K months, and to go to their next level of success, love, and wealth with passion, joy, and ease. Woo! All right, Lisy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Emily, for opening the space and for receiving me here. I'm so excited.
Yes. Oh, I just love everything about your introduction. And I am so curious to learn more about how you got into this line of work. So you were saying that you were in the performing arts. Tell me more about that.
Yes, so I trained as a professional dancer in France. So I'm originally from Europe. I was born in Portugal and, my parents moved to Luxembourg. I've then transitioned to France and then lived also in London for many, many years where I worked as a dancer and choreographer and as a dance teacher for children for many years.
I love that. And so I imagine there must have been a part of you also that was so interested in the inner work in order for you to marry these two interests together.
Yes, absolutely. So I actually left my dance and choreography career on a high, and there was simply not something that was off. It's just that there was something else calling me. So I quit my dance teaching career at the time and launched my own online business venture a few years ago. And to me, it was just, this calling in my heart. I knew there was something else coming through and I needed to listen. So I decided to trip around the world and to, just initiate my journey like this and to trust divine miracles to flow through, which it was. It was quite it was quite an incredible step, actually. Now that I really think about it, it required so much courage and so much determination to leave this dance career that had given me so much fulfillment and so many beautiful moments, and to also understand there was something else calling me and that it was, about stepping into a larger field, about going wider, about becoming more of myself, and also to trust that it wasn't just this artistic career that was coming through for me. There was also the teaching and the mentoring that kind of started to push through in the last years of my teaching career, where it was, really about mentoring women and mentoring humans to have a spiritual connection, right, with their soul purpose. And I had to basically drink up my own medicine through this. Yeah.
So tell me more about that, because when I left corporate America, still to this day, that was the scariest thing I ever did. How did you feel leaving this career that you obviously worked hard to build? I imagine so much of your identity was tied up in being a dancer, a choreographer. Did it feel scary? Did it feel aligned? Did everyone think you were crazy? Tell me more about that.
A little bit of all of those. For sure, there was so many different layers to the onion. Like you're just peeling off these layers, right? I guess really the pivotal moment for me was so tracking back 2016 when I actually became pregnant. And I was at the time in a long-term relationship with a partner, and there was a lot of upheaval in that relationship. It had a very toxic dynamic. It wasn't very smooth and very easy to navigate through it. And when I became pregnant, at first I really wanted to have this baby, and as we kept having discussions, what actually occurred was that it just wasn't going to be in alignment, that this pregnancy wasn't in alignment with both of us. And so I opted to have an abortion. And this actually really came in as a huge rite of passage into my feminine poison power, because I realized that we actually have this energetic capacity to create and birth life, right? And so at the time, just going through this decision was just so difficult for many different reasons. As you know, many women will come up to this decision from various standpoints. And for me, what really came through and what was the hardest was that my own mother actually had a perspective around abortion, where people around her wanted her to have an abortion. Or were counseling her to have an abortion, and then she opted against it because she felt that it wasn't in alignment to have an abortion. So I was basically the fruit of her, of the opposite decision. And here I was taking the other decision that my mother didn't take. I was going to have the other decision, right? And so this really initiated such a huge ripple effect in my own system for many reasons, right? Of being a people pleaser, trying to overcompensate and reach out to people and make sure everybody was supported and held. And here I was standing in the face of a decision where no one could actually help me. Like I had to decide all on my own. So with this rite of passage, what actually happened was that it also unraveled a realization of all the things that I had been carrying on my shoulders that were actually out of alignment with myself, and where I really wanted to go, which when I actually took the decision to leave my dance career, it's almost I already had a rinsing effect of what it means to take a difficult decision. So it almost like, of course, it felt scary. And also one of the things that I didn't mention in the beginning is when I left on my world trip, I was on a shoestring budget. I had something around $700 in my account, like currency. Like the currency translation into dollars, because I know that your audience is probably from the US and, well, cut the story short, I was on a shoestring budget, and I still decided to go to pack my life up and to leave on a trip around the world with only a one-way, like a one-way to LA, and then another one-way from Honolulu to Sydney. And it was totally crazy and irrational. Like people were telling me, Lisy, how are you going to do this? How is it going to... Like, how are you going to figure this out? And I said, I don't know how I'm going to figure it out, but I trust myself. There's something else calling me, and it will show up. And I mean, worst case scenario, I'll just go back home, right? Like that was literally all that I had, in the face of my vision. It's like I had nothing to show for proof. The only thing I could trust was my inner guidance. So yeah, I guess I kind of took a big spin around the question, but to me it really was, I had already had this deep initiation into taking a life or death decision. So taking that other decision thereafter almost felt like a piece of cake, because I had learned the blueprint and the energetic feeling of what it means to take a step forward into the life that is actually the one that we create with the divine.
Beautiful, beautiful. And to reflect back to you, I mean, what an embodiment of divine feminine energy, like the level of trust and surrender that you had in those moments. Like, I'm feeling a higher calling, a higher purpose. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but I'm not going to focus on the how. I'm just going to take the next step forward. And this trip feels aligned. I don't know how I'm going to do it on a $700 budget, but we'll work it out. And it sounds to me like holding so much space for magic and miracles and for co-creation. So I'm curious, do you have this relationship with something bigger than yourself, God, spirit, source, universe?
Oh, absolutely. It's like, there is no other question. Absolutely. I believe firmly and deeply that there is a much higher force in action whenever we are living our life. And that, of course, we have that path of destiny that is probably predestined, but we also get to co-create, right? So I believe that when a soul is born on this planet, we receive like a structural map, almost like an architect will kind of design the house and know, well, this is where the room is going to be, this is where the bathroom is going to be. But actually the fine details, we then decide, right? The owner of the house is going to decide, well, I'm going to put this kind of color on the wall, and the plug and the sockets are going to be fitting here in the best way, and actually I'm going to set up this plant and I'll use these wardrobes, right? So we then get to decide on the fine details. Mm-hmm. And I feel that the divine really works with us as that. Like, we come in with a structure for the life that we can live, and then we simply get to polish off the details once we're there. And I feel that really this is truly what happened on my world trip. Is I had this calling, my heart, like I could feel my heart expanding at the thought of just going traveling the world, meeting new cultures, meeting people where they live, also transitioning through these geographical places with different ley lines that are set on the planet, right? These energetic vortexes that are on the planet. And I haven't actually counted them, but I think I must have been to about 3 or 4 major energetic vortexes. And I also feel that there is a level of trust that we are born with, right? And when we come back to that innocence and back to that original blueprint of what trust and innocence and being and seeing ourselves as a child of God, as seeing ourselves as an extension of the miraculous creation of the universe, then there's a layer where things start to move without us needing to move them, right? It's like we simply get to surrender and trust that the flow of the divine is going to hold us.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I love that so much. So you traveled around the world, co-creating with Source. And at the end of that travel, is that where you launched your coaching practice?
Oh, I launched it right away. When I got out of the gates to travel, I launched it at the same time. This is actually how I managed to sustain myself as well. Okay. And I met a lot of my beautiful clients on the road. Actually, one of my clients is still working with me to this day. And I met her on a trip on actually my final trip to Thailand, because I went to Thailand 2 times. And so on my final trip to Thailand, I met her, and I met many other clients and students on the road, which was really interesting because people started to become magnetized by the story that I was creating. And honestly, it was just miracle after miracle. I was manifesting like crazy, right? But I don't think that I was manifesting from thought alone. I think that the manifestation process really started to move into reality because it just had to. It's like I had no other option. It had to work, right? And so this was really also an initiation into coming back to the essence, right? When we remove the distractions, as a society, we live in moments of deep distraction and an overload of information and constantly being stimulated. And when we're really on a travel like traveling into our soul, what happens is that we have to come to the essence, and from this essence, this core state of being, this is really what enables the universe to create and co-create with us, because it feels that there is a very direct lineage of, a stream of consciousness that is just being, instantly activated and programmed into. It was truly quite incredible that I, at the same time as I left, on traveling the world, I decided to create my own business. And at the same time, it was a God-sent gift for me and for all the people who then came into my coaching practice.
Yeah. And it makes perfect sense, right? Because when we're living our truest form, and self-expressing our gifts, we do become magnetic, and our soulmate clients do come, right? And of course, you're an energetic match for people that are living abroad and traveling and having these global experiences, because that's exactly what you were doing too. So, if I were doing that, of course I would want a coach that's prioritizing travel and that sees the value in those experiences. So I'm curious, I know for many of us entrepreneurs, our money wounds and all of our limited beliefs around money often didn't really surface until we became entrepreneurs. So talk to me about that, how you recognized your own limiting beliefs around money and how they showed up for you.
Okay, so wow, this is such a huge question, and I love this question because it also brings me back to this very, raw, authentic state of being that I was in. When I left and I had such a small budget, I really remember there were days when I was truly trying to weigh out whether I should pay for, another subscription on my email. No, it wasn't email, it was my Zoom account. I think it was like the Zoom account, whether I should pay for that or whether I should actually get food. And I remember there was one day when I skipped a meal just to make sure that I could pay for my Zoom subscription. And it almost brings me to tears, because today my Zoom subscription just like literally flows out. I mean, it's tiny, right? Like Zoom subscriptions, it doesn't cost that much, right? But for me at that time, it just seemed like such an unmountable kind of thing to commit to.
Yeah.
So that was one piece where I really had to come to terms with really navigating through what is it that I really need right now, and what is it that is actually serving something much bigger, right? And so I really, that first year in coaching business, I really had to literally peel off so many layers of, okay, I have only this amount, and I have to really make a wise decision about this, there's this client and they're showing up, and should I charge 200 or 100? Because if I'm charging 200, then that means I don't need another client for a while. But if I'm only charging 100, then it might be clearer for her to come through, right? So sometimes it's like that limiting beliefs. And I mean, today I just laugh, I lovingly laugh at this situation, because I really can see and understand the value that money and a monetary value really represents, right? It actually represents another week of getting by, or another trip that I get to take, or something that I can provide for myself, or that I can provide for my soul business. And it really taught me, I guess, the amount of connection that we really have with the divine, that the divine is really positioning this value in our hands, and it really matters. Like the intention with which we spend that amount really matters, right? That state of being that we put into that, $10 subscription, or even just that one client that comes in and pays $200 and chooses to pay $200 and not $100, right? Or that chooses to take 2 sessions instead of just one, right? Really, that small value, it matters so much. And to the point where now when clients come in and they purchase, a whole package, or they go and, really make that investment for themselves, I always try to set the tone that this is an intentional investment. I want every woman to have this consciousness and this awareness that every single dollar that we invest and that we place into this field of our dreams has to be placed with intention, and that intentionality actually activates and amplifies our own energetic vortex of receptivity and manifestation.
Man, do you just look back at that version of yourself and like honor her commitment and courage? I mean, yeah, like she had to get started and make those really tough decisions in order for you to be where you're at now. And that's really incredible. And I liked what you said about intentionality with money. And I wonder, what are your thoughts on balancing that with abundance mindset? Because as you were speaking about, being really intentional with every dollar spent, it feels to me like there could be a lot of scarcity there, right? Like it could be this feeling of like, we have to be very careful with every dollar because there's only a certain amount. And I don't believe that's what you're saying, but how do you uncouple the idea that we should be intentional with our money, but also understanding that there truly is an unlimited supply. And if you want to blow $500 of it on something that just makes you feel good, then that's great too.
Yes, I love that. And I think, yes, of course, there is this abundance mindset of there is this unlimited wealth and unlimited resources that are available to us. But I also feel that there are levels of initiation and there is a ritual that goes with every process. And of course, nowadays, I'm not really looking at $10 in the same way that I was looking at it back then. But I still have this value and appreciation for this small amount. But I do recall that sometimes back then, when I was actually spending $10, on a meal, I was literally, feeling as if I was spending like $1,000, right? Or it's like I'm spending 10 and I'm getting back threefold, I'm getting back tenfold of what I've just invested. So I was playing already with that structural mindset of, well, there's abundance. There's an abundance and unlimited wealth of resources out there. But I think that at the time, I wasn't capable of holding it energetically yet to that level, right? And I feel that, I'm a Taurus. It was also my birthday just recently. And actually what's interesting is that I feel that this is just the way that I operate. I feel that I have to go slowly because there's also a part in me that just likes to go out full blast and then I fall on my face. And so it's really this game between the revolutionary, like, yes, of course, all of the abundance is available to me, and this celebrity archetype that comes in, and it's like, I just want to use money and, dump it for power for the sheer purpose of fun and joy. And there's also this very grounded, steady, let's take it slowly and make sure it's stable. And, we're building an empire here. It's not just about just splashing the cash, but it's about, just really playing with all of these archetypes. And I do feel that, of course, in the beginning of my journey, I was definitely still locked up very much in the scarcity mindset, because let's remember, I was coming from a dance background. It wasn't like I was making tons of money back then, right? To me, this online world, like most entrepreneurs in the beginning, they really step into this and they just see a huge well of money just streaming in while you're sleeping. Well, you can make money while you're sleeping. Maybe not the first month you're in business. Let's be very clear here. At least that's not the experience that I had. And so it really was about peeling off this survival instinct that was still very much present inside of myself, and and working at it slowly so that I could actually become a match for a new paradigm, for a new way of being in the world, and in the world of finances and money, and in an empowered sense, right? Because I do believe that we have these initiations, and we have these lessons, and we have these very astutely laid out chapters of our life that will be positioned by our souls, so that we don't just get overwhelmed immediately with an overload that we might actually sabotage, or we might just spend and squander, rather than really use it to build an empire that lasts a while.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing I love about money, is that it's not actually about the money, right? It's about, how do I become the version of myself that can be a match for that level of wealth and that level of impact. And so it's this really fun, tangible measurement of the incredible, intangible inner work. And you talked about these chapters, and I want to dig into that a little bit more. And I believe in so much transparency around numbers. So I would love if you would share, kind of in each of those chapters up to present, what did the amount of money look like in your business? How much were you making? And then let's talk about some of the money wounds or limiting beliefs that you had to heal during each of those chapters in order to be ready and initiated into that next up-leveled version of yourself.
Okay, let's go for it. I'm excited about this. So I guess, we could just start right there, where I was in that, world trip scenario, trying to make ends meet, trying to make sure that I could just pay for my next flight. I could just pay for my next accommodation or my next meal. And one of the things that I really had to learn was that manifestation wasn't just coming in through monetary value. In fact, I counted it at the end of my world trip, and I think I manifested something around 20K worth of accommodation without ever having to pay for it. So that to me was just totally mind-blowing, right? To actually put in numbers and put in figures how much that accommodation would have been if I actually had to pay for it, but I didn't have to pay for it. So it was almost like I was receiving free money. It was free money everywhere.
Yes.
Right? And so just being available to that really made me see that there's so much more to value than just a number, right? And as much as one number means whatever it means, but there's so much more available, right? There's, nature is made of abundance. When you're looking at, I was living in Hawaii for 3 months, and I was literally walking through the jungle there, and there was like lily kois and different fruits hanging from trees all over the place. You could literally just pick them from a tree, right? And that to me was so new, because having lived in cities for all my life, to me seeing that abundance, that's a natural state of being of nature, is abundance, right? It was so mind-blowing. And I believe that it really helped me to leverage something in my business where it had the energetics of abundance without there being money for show, but that the abundance codex was already weaving itself through my life, right? And our businesses are a reflection of our life most of the time, right? So even coming back to that natural, organic flow of, well, actually, money is always coming in as a support system, and money has so many different languages. It doesn't just come in as a monetary value. There's so much more to it.
Not only that, but it comes in the ways that we resist it the least. And we often have the most resistance around it in the dollar bill form, the currency form. That's where we have the stories around, oh, it's bad, I'm greedy, who am I to have this? If someone just gives us a free accommodation, we don't have all kinds of weird judgment, guilt, shame around that. So it flows to us more easily often in those non-monetary ways.
It's true. Yeah, of course. And I mean, I was also doing some trades. So, it's like, what is it that I'm working for and what is coming back? But I love that comparison that you're putting out there. It really is sometimes the least resistance that we have with that kind of money. And that was the piece that I was not resisting to.
Yeah.
Right. So then moving into the second chapter, which I feel would have been, just coming back home and, living with my parents and being in a state of, okay, now full receptivity. I need to re-nourish myself. I need to take care of myself. I need to set something up that is not just going to be from, what is it that I'm, how much money can I make so that I can just get by for the next month? But that, okay, now it's really about building something that is strong, that is there's a foundation. And what am I really creating here? And so I started to play with, leveraging my prices in my coaching business. But also one of the major pieces that was coming through for me so much was resistance around getting a normal 9-to-5. Because I believed that there's no 9-to-5 there that is going to match with, really fulfilling what I love to do, which is to travel, to just create art, and to just be in my full expression. So I was waddling in that for a few months, just, concentrating and fully focusing on my business only and, trying to push something. And sometimes this is really where, God comes back in and says, hey, I've got something for you. And this is really what occurred, is that this job opportunity suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And it included me traveling. It included me creating, my own liberated expression and working with children again, bringing me back to life, bringing me back to the present moment. Children really often come in my life. I mean, being a dance teacher for, over 15 years that I worked as, children really bring us back to the present moment. I don't know if you're a mother or if we have any mothers tuning in here, but you cannot not be present with children. They pull you back into the present moment. And I feel this was really the initiation that I had to go through, is to let life take care of me in ways that I had not envisioned, right? To let life come back in and support me with a job that could actually pay for more of my education. And at the time, I was able to invest in a mentor, after 2 years pretty much of doing it solo. And so that healed me deeply and profoundly, because the way that I showed up with allowing life to take care of me and receiving the support actually made me become more magnetic to, just receive clients and actually have clients who would allow me to support them in return. So that would, there was many different beliefs in here, but I feel that the gist of it was, how much more can I allow life to actually take care of me without trying to push and to power and hustle through all the way?
Yeah. So in that first chapter where you manifested, $20,000 in non-monetary value, how much do you think you made in your coaching during that time? I don't know if you have an exact number, kind of a ballpark.
I actually counted it. I think I made around 8,000 euros, which probably comes to about 10K in 1 year.
Awesome. So then in this next season, you're making how much from the job, the salary?
So with the salary, including the coaching as well. So because I did my numbers this week because I knew we were coming on. So I think I hit around 25K for the year.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And is that indicative of your current chapter, or are we still kind of talking about the past?
We're still talking about the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's bring it up to present day. What are we looking at?
So to present day, Well, actually, what was really interesting, so as I was looking at my numbers this week, I realized that in only the first 4 months of this year, the total that I made from my coaching was X amount, but I also received some funding and I received some other support systems. So I rounded it up to around 15K that I made.
Yeah.
And in only the first 4 months of this year, I actually made that exact amount. So it's almost like I tripled my income this year alone. And so that to me was just totally mind blowing, because it really made me have a reality check about the courage that I took back then, not knowing what was going to come for me. Now being here and standing at, well, I actually just made that in the first 4 months of this year, which actually equated more or less to what I would make in a year as a dance teacher in my beginning years. So it was really incredible how this is actually now showing up, right? That people are really coming in to support me, that I have created all these different states of receiving on a higher level.
Yeah. What I love about you sharing that, and by the way, thank you for the courage to share your numbers transparently. When we hear other people's numbers, they feel really neutral. When we share our own numbers, we attach a lot of meaning to that typically. And what I want to acknowledge in you is that often we weaponize the numbers. So we will say something like, I only did 15K so far this year, and I really want to be at 15K a month, not 15K in 4 months or 5 months. And so we really focus on the lack, and we use our number as evidence of our unworthiness or why we're not successful or whatever. And I love the context and the meaning and the story that you chose to create around your number, right? Which is like, wow, this is evidence of such growth. Look at me. Look at the courage that I had. And just a few years ago, this is what I made in a year coaching. And now here I am. I'm collapsing time. I've made the same amount in just a matter of months. And like, how empowering is that, right? Because then we can dream into the possibility, like pretty soon it is going to be 15K a month. And oh my gosh, how exciting is that going to be?
Yes, exactly. I believe it is so important for us to acknowledge the journey that we've been on. And I believe also that that's really where we honor the feminine fully and completely. Because really the feminine dynamic of operating in the world is about the process more than the goal, right? It's about the journey. It's honoring the evolution. It's honoring the cycle of life. Yes. Truly, it's creation that is constantly in motion, that is constantly dancing with us, right? And so there's so much power when we actually acknowledge the path that we've already been on, right? And to really like devote ourselves to all these little past versions of ourselves that actually needed to accumulate and needed to walk through these life chapters, right? And actually learn all these different lessons and move through these different states of being, so that she now can receive as her full splendor right now. And at the same time, she is now creating the future version of herself. I am creating my future version of myself. You're creating your future version of yourself, right? Everyone in the audience is doing the exact same.
Yes.
And so we have a state of being, of celebration and honoring and being devoted, right, to all these timelines, right? The past timeline and the future timeline collapsing in the now. It creates a state of being that is open and free. I also feel that this is really where our liberation is. It's actually right here, right now. Our liberation isn't in the future when we will have made blah, blah, blah. Yes. And it also isn't in the past. It actually is taking place right here, right now, right? And when we can really honor that liberation is actually being acknowledged here. It's actually being expressed and breathed into right here, right now. right? It's like, whoo, let's take a deeper breath in here, right? Life is made of breaths.
Yes, your words are medicine for my soul, girlfriend, because I am one of those people that attached my happiness to a future state. And I'll tell you what, you know, when I hit my first 100K month, I actually felt pretty bad because I had this idea of how I was going to feel when it happened. And guess what? It didn't feel that way, because our happiness is never contingent on our external environment. It's always an inside game. And you're right. Everything is in the now, and we can choose in the now to be in gratitude and joy and ease and flow and play and fun and surrender. And when we do that, then the future unfolds so beautifully and in ways that are so much better than we could have imagined.
It's so true. I love that you were able to give yourself that grace of just feeling what you were feeling. And it's interesting. It actually, just like when you were sharing that, it reminded me of an episode last year when I made 10K in 2 months. And I was just overwhelmed. I was totally overwhelmed. My clients were telling me like, Lisy, I just had my first 7.5K a month. And I'm like, how did you do that? I never even made it in my whole life, right? And my clients were just suddenly having all of these breakthroughs. And this has actually been my reality, is that very often my clients make much more than what I'm making, right? And it's so interesting because there's something that, this is really where we have to become so courageous in the present moment of allowing ourselves to feel what we feel fully and completely, and then, you know, allow that which we feel to set us free. Yeah. Because our feelings and emotions really are, the feeding and the breeding ground for all of our becomings to unfurl. And so here you were, hitting your first 100K month, thinking, this is what I'm going to be feeling. And actually, oops, no. Very often, the money situations really also bring in levels of healing and integration. And it actually reminds me that in my body of work, there is something that I bring up to the table, which I call post-traumatic success disorder and not post-traumatic stress disorder. Because every time we hit a level of success, sooner or later, we will have to move through a tidal wave of healing and integration. Be it just the fact that we're now releasing the person who we have become, right? And suddenly, well, this person who never hit 100K months, or this person who, whatever, right? We build an identity around that success, what that success looked like. It's like we have to mourn and grieve the fact that that identity is now leaving, right? That identity was part of ourselves for all these years, and now suddenly she gets to leave, and it can create sadness. It's not that it's traumatic in any way,
right?
But there's a level of releasing and letting go. And specifically when I'm seeing my clients hit higher numbers, like 5K months, like 10K months, there's always a level of, well, yeah, she can celebrate it, of course, but there's always going to be a level of releasing and healing and grieving the past version of herself who sometimes struggled so much, right? Who sometimes had to go through all these hardships, right? Who had to make choices that were not always in alignment. And now she gets to release and surrender that back into the universe. And she gets to claim a new version of herself fully and completely. And that sometimes comes with sadness. It doesn't come with joy. It comes with what our body is ready to shake off, right?
I just really appreciate you opening the conversation around this, because it's really not talked about enough. When entrepreneurs and women especially are talking about money, which doesn't happen enough in general, but when we do talk about it, it tends to be this highlight reel, these big highs. And then it's rare to hear someone talk about the emotional lows that sometimes go along with that. And I really feel that that's the value in paid mentorship and paid coaching, because when your clients are working with you, it may feel very disorienting for them. Mm-hmm. But for you, you've been through it yourself. You've guided your clients through it. You've actually coined the most delicious branding around it, this post-traumatic success syndrome. And so that's really, in my view, the value of having a coach or a mentor, right? Is we can collapse time faster because we have someone saying, yes, me too. I've been here. This is the road. Here's what's on the other side of it. Let's work through it together. So I just thank you for bringing that up. And I so appreciate this conversation, and am excited to continue following your journey as you transition and initiate into these next level versions of yourself. And I know that my audience will want to as well. So can you tell us, my beautiful Lisy Butterfly, how can my audience follow you? What's the best way for them to stay in touch or reach out to you?
Okay, so first of all, it's my pleasure to open up this conversation. It's been such an honor to have this conversation with you too. And yes, your audience can follow me on at Lisy Butterfly, so Lisy Butterfly, all in one word. They can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. Those are usually the platforms where I'm at the most. And yeah, from there, it's just an easy ride into whatever content I have. Either have some YouTube channel things coming up or some new programs, whatever is coming up usually pops up somewhere on my Facebook or on my Instagram.
Beautiful. And from connecting with you on social media, I know how authentically you share your life and your story. So it really is a joy to be connected with you on social media. And I know that everyone listening will want to as well. So Lisy, thank you again for your courage, your vulnerability, and just your radical honesty. This was such a refreshing conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Emily. Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. And yeah, sending you so much love. This was such a beautiful conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Changing the way we think, feel, and talk about money will change the world. I truly believe that. It starts with you tuning in, and it spreads when you share this show on Instagram and Facebook and tag me at mmakesmoney. And you know what moves the needle the most? Taking just a minute to leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This show isn't free to produce, so let's multiply those dollars invested to help this show reach a bigger audience each week. Thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. And lastly, if you want more connection, more M Makes Money style riffs, and a safe place on the internet to talk about money, jump into my free Facebook group, The Money Club. It's linked in the show notes. Until next time, I'm wishing you health, happiness, and boatloads of money.